We're back. Are we back?
Yeah, we're
back.
Play that one next.
Right.
We're back.
Thanks for staying with us. On to our next topic as we turn the hour here at Planet Green Cheese. First of all, let's start out with, we're still doing the episode number 384. Jeff Frazier seems to be leaving. That's okay. We'll expect him back.
T-Pain, take the wheel.
He's just stepping outside briefly. He'll be back.
Topic going forward here is the AG.
Yeah, here, let's play a little.
let's
let's play a little
race.
video clip real quick.
We have a video
on
montage. here.
everybody's
driving discussions too.
Everybody's.
Why don't we do that?
What?
Before we get to that, because that's a topic that we can save for the last. This is an issue I think we should take some commentary on. One of the things that came up in discussions and will probably be at issue, and something activists, advocates should probably be able to discuss is, what about all the danger that legalizing marijuana is going to cause? You're going to have all these 8 million people now, 7 million people in the state of Michigan, all high, driving around with my kids waiting at their bus stop.
What about the kids?
What about the kids? I think the driving issue will be more equally, if not.
I think it's going to be. I think you're right, Michael. It's going to be the
It's
driving
gonna be a
issue.
huge
That's going to be
problem.
the big thing. Impaired driving.
Well,
What is impaired driving?
Here, let me say this. So the ultimate issues are, and I want to hear from Steve's opinion, and we will hear from Ben's got an opinion. Alan may have an opinion too. And I want to think everyone can have an opinion on what they think it should be, and then they have to give a reasonable or objective opinion of what they think might ever be reality. Okay? Because, listen, some people might say they drive better when they have ingested cannabis, some people might say. Some people might say that.
I would think some people
Some people have said that recently.
may be
And
more
they're not
cautious
listening.
when they
Never
do
mind.
it.
Do I get to do it? I will. Are you
know.
ready? I will do this right now. Is that what you want to do? Listen, if
No, I'm not.
Sharmy
I'm
is
sorry.
losing
That's
her
ridiculous.
mind.
I was just
Sharmy
looking,
has an
I was just
opinion
looking for
now.
like a giggle. Not a whole fucking
oh, I'm sorry. Can we start over? Do it again.
She's burning the place
Do it
down
again.
now.
Right. No, that's okay.
Put the gas can down, Sharmy.
So, and I don't dispute that. I don't dispute that. Let me say that. However,
It's true.
a law enforcement official may not, by training, not by truth, by training, never, ever accept it because they would say it's a Schedule I drug. People are, whatever, who knows. Anyways, but I think this is something that whether it's true or not, and what we believe or may not believe or what our thoughts on, we need to be aware of that this is going to be a major issue. Secondly, the way that other states have dealt with it when legalization or some other more intensified medical marijuana regulatory program set up, where they those that patrol the roads know that you're going to have more, it's presumed there are going to be more people ingesting cannabis and being on the roads. And how they dealt with it is the question. They have some states have done nothing. Some states have implemented per se amounts. Colorado has a 5 nanogram maximum. And we could probably get the data on what the other states are doing right now. But so first, let me go around the room and have everyone's thoughts on why they think this should or should not be an issue. Let's start with retired police officer Steve Miller.
It shouldn't be an issue. I mean, what do they think that, okay, it's going to become legal? And then, so you're going to get this whole slew of new people that are going to just be out smoking and driving every day.
Well, that will happen.
Do you think that will happen?
Yeah.
Well, that's what you're saying. It already does, but there will be more.
There'll be more.
You think there'll be more?
Yes.
But does that necessarily mean these people are impaired, Steve? That's
You know
the
what?
question.
And does consuming cannabis make you an unsafe driver?
Well, he's not stating an opinion. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, Steve. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Do you want me to mute her, Steve?
So I don't. Okay. So first of all, I don't think there should be a limit put on it. I mean, it's different levels affect different people differently, and people who use it regularly, if you think of it as any other medication, that maybe you don't drive on it initially until you realize the effects and how it affects you, and then you're okay to drive on different medications after you get used to their effects, similar to, I think, cannabis in a lot of ways.
One thing that's very difficult for cannabis patients is traveling, because in the United States, the laws on drug driving differ from state to state. It's like looking at a checkerboard with all the different colors and imagining all the different colors or different laws for each state. For example, in some states, it's zero tolerance for both THC and THC metabolites. Now, Michigan, it's zero tolerance for just THC. Now, as
For
Michael said-
non-patients.
yeah, for non-patients, correct. As Michael stated, Colorado has a 5 nanogram per se limit, but it's actually, in that state, it was written as a rebuttable per se to give the attorney some chance to defeat it at court. Some states don't have that rebuttable language in their 5 nanogram limit. So the one thing that would be helpful for all patients in the future is to have some sort of national standard so that we don't have to, so that we can have freedom of travel with our medication.
Well, in the way that you just explained that and advocated for a national standard, it seemed like in the discussion of a per se amount there might be one.
No.
Okay, then let me because let's just go to the raw data and we can be more specific. We're gonna do a video about this, right? And there's a great blog on the MMA about this, but a somewhat reputable insurance company, if there's such a thing, AAA, who's got if they have a dog in the fight, it's going to be one that is going to potentially have a per se limit because you're going to have actual threshold by which people can be charged. Rates would go up. I think they would benefit in the long run and probably be able to deny, services or payments on claims if there's as a basis if there's some kind of per se limit. Anyways, they produced a report. It was 2014, I believe, where they said we have scoured the data. We've taken it all in. We've had access to all the crash reports, access to all the types of drugs, if any, that may have been involved in this, and we've come to the conclusion that you cannot provide a per se number. People are too different. Their interactions with cannabis vary too greatly for us to be able to say that, and we instead recommend AAA that we leave this to and put our funding as a government towards training officers in the what is sometimes referred to as witchcraft of, and I don't mean to speak badly of any witches, but drug recognition experts. And junk science is another way to describe it, not witchcraft.
Michael, it's interesting about the same time that AAA came out with that study, NHTSA said the same thing. NHTSA being National Highway Traffic Safety Association also came to the same result. But I think we could just keep things simple and just have a 300 nanogram per se limit nationwide.
Well, we need that.
500 maybe.
What's mine?
But
What are my nanograms
I think
right
it's
now?
also important to
What are they?
say that what Steve said over there is, I think, what is suggested on the bottle of Marinol, on the warning label there, which is do not operate an automobile or operate heavy machinery until you get used to the effects of this medication.
Perfect.
And that's THC. That's the component that they're worried about in its pure form, in edible form. So,
In other words, the federal government,
maximum high.
who has already that's a is that part of this in the blog?
Yeah, it's all.
The black part.
I don't know about that.
It's the rewrite. Got to get a link to that. That's a good point. I'll tell you why. And another good point to add to it is that there is no levels or per se amounts regarding any other controlled substances that are on the list.
That's right.
So,
of the medications.
In other words,
none of
you
this
could
matters.
draw blood and someone could have X amount of nanograms of whatever Cadin, and it doesn't have any significance in the law. It may just be the therapeutic levels that are the exact amount of nanograms that you should have in your bloodstream because of the prescription you're taking.
But if there's bad driving, then everything changes.
Not necessarily.
In
There's not an
Michigan.
automatic correlation because someone's got the therapeutic amounts of their drug that's prescribed to them in their system and they're driving badly. Those two things do not automatically connect.
They do with marijuana.
No.
In the court systems, they absolutely do.
Well, let's talk about this. The way it works in the court system is if you're not a patient and you have any nanograms, 1 nanogram,
Then you are guilty of a crime.
then you can be charged without any bad driving. Without any bad driving, they punish you just for that, which is really strange because the state of Michigan is undergoing a guinea pig experiment on the humans in 5 counties and swab testing there to determine swab testing and roadside testing. We don't have any of the results yet. kind of a false, I don't know. But the results of which are supposed to give some indication as to whether or not the state of Michigan can identify a per se number, and should they, for purposes of adopting some kind of legislation in that regard. You know what's terrible about the experiment, which isn't talked about a lot? They're doing this now because they don't know. But there's a law that prohibits and criminalizes people for having any. They need to do a study to find out if there's a level. And while they're doing that, while it's always been before they can even get to that level, they have criminalized any without being able to say that it's dangerous.
We have the Impaired Driving Safety Commission, which was a law that was passed by our legislature and has 5 members, including one patient, is on that board. And so it's been in existence by law for 2 years. I think they actually didn't appoint the commission until about 8 months ago. But as far as I know, they have not issued any report or come to any conclusion on exactly what we're talking about, is whether there should be a per se level for THC similar to what there is for alcohol.
There absolutely will be. And I don't agree with it. It's coming. And
Where
people
are the
need
laws protecting us from being guinea pigs in the state of Michigan like this as citizens? Like, why do we have to be subjected to these kinds of tests by cops? They're not even scientists or people that care about us. They're the roadside. They're the cops.
They want to treat it just like alcohol in all aspects. And while you might be able to regulate it like alcohol, for things like this, you cannot treat it the same as alcohol. It's not the same.
So wait, let's talk about alcohol for a second. Does that mean, do you want marijuana bars and lounges where people can smoke and then drive home? Or do you rather want people to only smoke at home and not drive for hours?
Anywhere that somebody can smoke a cigarette, for sure.
It's like a cigarette nut, Chad?
No,
I'm going to treat it like a cigarette, or like a medication, or like a beer.
Is like a cigarette. That's the only comparison.
It's smoke.
I pulled over
only
a
because
lot of
it's
people
smoke.
in a 20-year period, and I arrested a lot of drunk drivers. And I can tell you, I never once arrested somebody for driving under the influence of marijuana.
And why not?
Because I never had reason to.
Right.
Because you couldn't identify them as being
Is impaired, no.
impaired. But
So-
you are, and then I have a question for you, Steve. What percentage of local police on the beat doing traffic work every day do you think follow that kind of logical thinking?
Probably 80% of them.
Really?
Then you got that 20% that are just bad.
The DTFs.
They give. Well, DTF's not working patrol out on the street pulling people over.
There would be a lot
They're raiding
more.
people's homes.
If every cop that smelled marijuana arrested someone or for DUI, there would be so many.
But it's just that.
But that's exactly what's going to
Your
happen.
decent officer is going to go up to the car and talk to this person and see that they can talk and they're lucid, and you give them all your stuff, and you're talking fine, and there's no identification of this person as being impaired. Whereas with alcohol, there is. If somebody's had too much to drink, that's pretty easy to spot.
Right.
So is smoking in the car banned by the Am I Legalized?
No, not at all.
It's not.
Nope.
Is that in public maybe though?
Yes.
Okay.
But people don't like it, but they're going to regulate the hell out of this.
I think this is the issue they're going to go to, the people, everybody against it, and there's just no reason for it. It doesn't intoxicate in that way.
Yeah.
If you could consider it intoxicating at all.
Right.